The Beatles, Scarface, and Jesus Christ. Yeah, the 1900s were a wild time.
You can say that again. Welcome back to Bumblebee. We got a fun one for you today. Here are the top 10 unusual things that celebrities did in the 1900s. Number 10, Crazy Train. Sharon! I make a lot of jokes about teenage angst. I think it's relatable and funny to look back and see how we acted. We were just going through some stuff, okay? As a rule, that means parents don't understand youth pop culture and music. And why in God's name do you want to pierce that part of your body? So, you can imagine how wholesome suburban parents felt when British rocker Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off a live bat during one of his totally sober performances. The Dark Prince of Rock and Roll is no stranger to controversy. This whole list could be about him, honestly. But one night in January 1982, he bit the head off a deceased bat to show a crowd of rowdy rockers just how metal he was. Rumor has it wasn't the first time he had a winged creature for lunch, as there's a story about him doing the same thing to a dove in front of somebody from a record label.
Number 9, Elizabeth, Eddie, and Debbie. We're going back to the 60s for this one, when Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor were both under contract at MGM. They became close friends, of course, while working there, and more often than not, they would go on double dates with their husbands, Mike Todd and Eddie Fisher. Eddie was with Debbie, and Elizabeth was with Mike. Now, shortly after a plane crash in 1958 that took the life of Mike, Elizabeth was being comforted by Eddie. Of course, that's what happens when you're best friends and all. But that's when things began to get scandalous, dare I say. Their relationship turned into that of a romantic one. Tabloids caught wind of the affair, and like today, headlines were all over town. Eddie ended up divorcing Debbie, leaving their 2 kids as well, to marry Elizabeth Taylor. Their marriage lasted about 5 years, and that's when Elizabeth met Richard Burton while filming Cleopatra, and then another scandal began to unfold. Debbie Reynolds was pretty chill about it as well. She said, hey, if your husband's gonna leave you for anyone, it might as well be Elizabeth Taylor. Honestly, fair enough. Sometimes these celebrity entanglements are a bit fun.
Number 8, I am not a crook. The 1970s America. What a time to be alive. If you lived through the decade, you remember how the way things were. You might also have a pair of bell-bottom jeans that you don't want to remember. But perhaps the most unusual event of the 1970s was Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal. Richard Nixon was the 37th President of the United States, and while he's not a celebrity in the same sense that Justin Bieber is, he was the leader of the free world when TVs and cameras had become available in every household in America. And there was quite a lot of talk about with old Tricky Dick. At the time, the Vietnam War had been raging too long, and in fear of putting Bob Hope out of a job, Americans were divided about the war. Should we end it or keep it going? The political climate was messy, to say the least. So, when very honest President Richard Nixon was running for re-election, a little extra help was needed. People connected to the president were trying to spy on the opposite party's doings, installing wiretaps and microphones at the Watergate building. But one night after a break-in, were caught, and the plot began to unravel. Naturally, the president tried his best to cover up his involvement, but after some saucy tapes of his own were leaked, it was clear he was part of the espionage. Not too soon after, he resigned, and then was immediately pardoned by the new president. Thank God there would never be another scandal in American presidency ever again.
Number 7, Mary Pickford. Now, I mentioned earlier how these celebrity scandals often came from their love life. Who's dating who's divorcing who? I mean, look at how often we bring up Pete Davidson today. The celebrity dating game is always interesting, to say the least. Now, as hard as it is, we can't judge people off of a headline or a scandal. We don't know the full story, regardless of what BuzzFeed tells you, okay? The silent film star divorced her husband Owen Moore around the 1920s, and she married a man named Douglas Fairbanks right after. And when I say right after, I mean like Pete Davidson. It was literally less than a month. I'll admit that would interest me as well. Now, the public, at first, they weren't happy with Pickford. They made assumptions about how long this affair had been going on for, all that good stuff. She's married, how could she, yada yada yada. Her career was on the line. That was until Owen Moore was reported to be a total piece of shit. Yep, he was abusive towards the actress, so she went from being almost cancelled to perhaps the most courageous.
Number 6. Change the channel, pretty mama. Elvis Presley is probably the most famous person to have ever lived. If not, he's an easy top 5. The man sang and shaked his hips to stardom in the early 1950s, crushing music records, and in a sense, was the first A-list celebrity to get that big that fast. He was handsome, rich, and had a great voice. What could be so unusual about the King of Rock? Well, a few things actually. His diet was interesting to say the least, and would have modern fitness trainers fainting just by the sight of it. His favorite comfort food was fried peanut butter bacon banana sandwiches, which to a big guy like me sounds really good, but too many of those could leave you with a gut-busting tummy ache, which when you look at older pictures of Elvis later in life, it kinda adds up. But perhaps the most unusual thing about the King was the way he changed the channel on the TV. He's rumored to have done this multiple times, but on one specific occasion, when Robert Goulet was appearing on TV, this enraged the King for some reason, and he fired a shot from his gun at the TV. Sure, he's got the money to keep replacing them, but someone should have told him there was a TV remote.
Number 5. Jay Lennon. Okay, this one comes from 1966. If you're a Beatles fan or a fan of, Big Guns Upstairs, you for sure heard about this scandal. During an interview with the UK newspaper, John Lennon started talking about the group and how their popularity was on the rise, of course. Normal band talk, all that jazz from Jay Lennon. But when Jay Lennon said the Beatles were more popular than Jay Christ, well, people got upset. A lot of people got upset. He didn't mean anything bad out of it. He noticed that Christianity was on the decline around the world. Meanwhile, the Beatles were selling left, right, and center. So when a US newspaper printed this exchange months later, Christians were so upset. More popular than Jesus. I know what he's trying to say here, but still, also, no. Some radio stations stopped playing the Beatles altogether. Christians gathered in bonfires to burn albums. Jay Lennon, not Jay Christ, but Jay Lennon, had to apologize numerous times at press conferences. He had to clear everything up.
Number 4. Scarface. Al Capone was a ruthless gangster in the 1920s and 30s, where his life of bootlegging and excess would make him infamous. So much so that people in media rather enjoyed hearing from the portly crook. While there have been celebrities before him, he was honestly one of the first to receive such attention. Even though not a traditional star like singers or actors, he was very recognizable, almost similar to how paparazzi treat celebrities today. So what's so unusual about being snorky, you might ask? Well, it's his downfall that was very peculiar. For years, government agencies and police were trying to take down Capone for a rap sheet so long, you'd have to change your ink cartridge out of your printer twice just to get the half of it. But no matter how many illegal activities Capone may or may not have been a part of, the police just couldn't keep up with him, and the people at first loved to hear about his life of excess. This was due to the extreme levels of corruption at the time. As another Italian mob boss would say, I'm gonna make them an offer they can't refuse, bribing officials or threatening them in order to get his way. So what is the crucial piece of evidence that put him away? If you guessed tax evasion, you're right. Yep. The most infamous criminal in American history lost it all because he didn't pay his taxes, eventually winding up in the infamous Alcatraz prison, where he would grow very ill due to a brothel-related illness.
Number 3. Jackie Coogan's parents. Before he played Uncle Fester in the popular Addams Family franchise in the 70s, Jackie Coogan was a child star. His career kicked off after he starred in Charlie Chaplin's The Kid, and when Jackie turned 21, he underwent a long and heartbreaking legal battle with his own mother and stepfather. Yeah, keeping it in the family. This was back before the California Child Actors Bill was passed, so back then, his parents just refused to share any of the money with him. The money that he earned on that film with his face and voice and everything. It was a long battle that he ended up winning, thankfully, but unfortunately, after that long, legal fees just ate up most of what he earned. Like I said, he went on to star in other productions, and the new bill safeguards a percentage of all child actor earnings, but imagine taking your parents to court, especially over money that you earned. That is insane.
Number 2. Michael, are you okay? Okay, Al Capone was the biggest name in Chicago. Elvis was the biggest name in America. The President of the United States is known worldwide, but Michael Jackson just might be known throughout the whole universe. His career would span from the early 70s all the way up into the mid 2000s. He was so famous, I wouldn't be surprised if the first contact we have with aliens is aliens dressed in the Michael Jackson Thriller outfits. He is most likely the biggest celebrity ever, and when you get that big, sometimes it can affect you. Make you do unusual things. This is going to be a speed round, folks, so hold on. Like dangle your children off a balcony in front of paparazzi, buy and own a chimpanzee named Bubbles, try to purchase the rights to Marvel before it was good, try to buy the Elephant Man's bones, owning a literal throne, the multiple legal accusations, the whole skin changing thing, and Neverland. Neverland was just always strange to me, I don't know. With great power comes great responsibility. Michael Jackson was a talented singer, dancer, and honestly amazing entertainer. Just a little crazy, that's all. And with all that pressure and stress, can you really blame him?
And finally, number 1, Natalie Wood's death. If you're a murderino, this one will intrigue you. I normally wouldn't include the passing of a celebrity in a list of unusual things that happened, but the details released by the ship's captain as recently as 2011, this could possibly change everything we know. Natalie Wood was one of the most talented in Hollywood. The actress was in her early 20s, and already she was getting Oscar noms. She's known for West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause. But when she was 43, Natalie was sailing with her husband, Robert Wagner, off Catalina Island in California, and she lost her life. Her death was considered an accident with little details. It was classified as an accidental drowning. But come 2013, it was changed to drowning and other undetermined factors. Wood, her husband Wagner, and Christopher Walken were all aboard the 60-foot yacht November 28, 1981. The three actors had dinner in the harbor and then returned to the yacht to continue drinking and eating. Wood went missing around midnight that night, but the new information is that the couple had argued earlier that night at dinner. And according to a new report, the one that was changed in 2013, after a different statement was released by the ship's captain, bruises and scratches that were considered fresh were seen on Wood's body. Woods was officially reported as missing at 1:30 in the morning that night. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Bumblebee. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters.
And I've been your host, Andrew Castlegate. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon.
Peace.
Peace.
Woods was officially reported as missing. Woods was a fish, apparently.